Well, folks, it's not my internet's problem anymore. I'm hardwired in, folks. This is Drew Banger's problem, and he froze up there right in the middle of the Chicago Hounds. So, yeah, basically, you weren't there long, and then you got traded somewhere again
So I was in Chicago for 9 games
as an
for I
all-star.
don't yeah, as an all-star, so a hot product gas. So anyways, 9 games there. I don't move out of the hotel. I finally move in like 2 days into a apartment with the goalie Marty Majors. And then I go to a practice right around the trade deadline on the other side of the city. And I drive there, get my gear on, I'm in the room, and these guys are kind of looking at me, and I'm like getting a weird vibe from these guys. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I go on the ice, skating around, shooting pucks, whatever. Equipment manager calls me over. I'm like, okay. Go in, coach meets me. Hey, you've been traded to Fort Wayne. Fair enough. Took my gear off, left the rink, I was out of Chicago in within an hour because I didn't unpack anything, right? That's
Yeah,
the secret of minor hockey or
minor
minor
pro,
pro
baby.
hockey is you don't hang anything on the walls, and if you're unsure, don't unpack your bags. So I end up going from Chicago Hounds to the Fort Wayne Comets in Fort Wayne, Indiana. This place, if your listeners are from around the world, this place is, a minor pro hockey mecca. Like they love the Comets. And the first night went there and played on a Saturday night. We were playing the Rockford Ice Hogs, I believe. And it was sold out. They had 10 to 12,000 people there. And I'm like, this is insane.
10 to
So end up,
12,000
yeah,
on a
every
regular
night,
season game?
yeah, every night. It was unbelievable. Like the Frankie brothers run the team there. I think they're still involved with it, but the way they run that is similar to like the Hunter guys in London. Like it's very similar. So end up playing there for the rest of the season. And then our goalie, Kevin St. Pierre, was going down to sign in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the Central League, and brought myself and another guy that played in Fort Wayne with him down to
So,
Tulsa.
so that year you're an all-star. You get traded a couple times and you end up in Fort Wayne, which is awesome. You end that year like did you want to go back to Fort Wayne and they didn't want you, or like what's the deal there?
They sent me a qualifying offer to come back, but this goalie he
He's
held a lot of records and was very successful in minor pro. And we were going down to Tulsa. He was going down there. Jeff Christian was signing there, who just won the league MVP in the Central League. It was supposed to be the next big thing, and it just wasn't. But an interesting fact was, I don't know if anyone could top this, but in that first year of pro, I feel like I'm the only guy to ever be in 3 team photos in a year.
That's
Like
pretty good. Like you're
I was
actually in the
basically
photo.
collecting tracksuits that year. So yeah.
Well, I bet I'm still wearing some of mine. I hope you're still wearing some of yours. The tracksuits are
Mhm.
nice,
Very true.
right? Like you got to pay for
So
that shit now.
yeah, I know.
Okay. So other thing is I know you like going on vacations, and I do too. If you were thinking of going to Blue Mountain, Collingwood area, like where the Waltons originated, like where GG Walton is from, if you go to stayinblue.ca and put in Wally 20 and a minimum 3-night stay, guess what? 20% off your stay. That's golfing trips, bachelor parties. That's whatever you guys are doing. That's whatever you gals are doing. If there's a bachelorette party, if you guys are going to Blue Mountain, Collingwood area, why would you pay full price, folks? put in Wally 20, make it happen.
That seems like a
Anyways,
hell of a deal, folks, too. I mean, just to echo off his pitch there, but with the pandemic opening up here in Ontario, it might be
might be
a
golf
key
season.
time to book things, and it'll probably book up quick. So use that
They won't
promotion
be.
code.
Yeah, you may as well get 20% off, right? Because like
Why
they are
not?
gonna book up soon. Like everybody's gonna be golfing. Everybody's gonna be out and about. It's go time, baby. Anyways, moving on is you were an all-star, played for 3 teams. Then you get to the Tulsa Oilers, which we've discussed. Jeff Van Eynatten was on the team, but episode 28, Justin Miser, he already dropped his name, so I don't have to feel as bad now. But in the Daytona Beach Bombers, we played with a fella that tried to fill a wall with beer cans. He was on the roster in Tulsa. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Kelly.
Yes, correct.
What was his first name?
Paul.
Paul Kelly.
So the
Yeah.
stinkiest practice player I've ever played with. Literally, his farts could clear rooms. He could skate by you on a flow drill, like get the touch pass and just leave you with like a special present, and then you're trying to pass and you're like, come on, man.
He was as for me, that was my second year pro, and I still had that in mind. Like, hey, have a good year. Let's go to the AHL. Like, come on,
Were you
let's make
still
something
making it?
happen.
Were you still
What?
making it?
No, I was thinking. I didn't. No one told me, but Paul Kelly was a very talented player, but he liked to have fun. He one time in a game slept through, like showed up like 5 minutes before the game, and because I think he had a rough night the night before, so his pregame nap went a little longer, and he came and got a hat trick and won. I think in like down in the south, he win like I think he won a Stetson hat or a pair of cowboy boots or something for scoring a hat trick, and it was.
And he was
But
just crushed.
he was a weapon. Like he
Oh
was.
yeah, he's a beauty. What a guy. That year in Dayton, man. And like he was our third line center and he was an important player for us. And like that guy could do her, man. He could do her.
He could burn it at both ends and still show up. He could just
He
do it.
could. He could. It didn't matter how bad he smelled. Really didn't.
Mhm.
So the Tulsa Oilers, were they any good?
We were not good. I don't know how many names we had on the roster that year, but it seemed like a revolving door of people coming in, coming out.
Isn't that what minor hockey is? Like it's such a team sport in North America.
Yeah. Went through a coaching change, and then that didn't help much. So yeah, that was a year in Tulsa that I think I mentioned earlier that I always played on good teams. Other than Waterloo and that team, that was the hardest year, I think, to keep going. So
And Nathan was the goalie. Like, was he not good?
he came late in the year, so he only played, I don't know how many games, a handful maybe, but he wasn't there all year.
I wonder what he was like in pro. I can't wait to have him on and hear about some of these stories because, like, I'm curious what he's like in pro because, like, he is quite the goalie and like he is as like I've played ping pong with him. I know how competitive he is. I know it drove him absolutely Looney Tunes when he couldn't win at ping pong, and when he did, he was the proudest punch. But if he lost at ping pong, he'd be like ripping up my parents' yard and like with his Jimmy driving off the,
Yeah.
and it's like, well,
Well, his first game when he came to Tulsa, this wasn't, the Jeff I knew from college with rules and stuff with Niagara and everything. So we're playing like soccer, kick around or whatever, and he's got a dart idling in his mouth, like as we're playing. soccer, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like this is Jeff like raw and right here. This is, and guys were like, what is this? Like this guy kidding? Like this is his first game. Like first impressions go a long way. And the
And
Dutch
he
is
showed
just
up
sitting there.
and
He's like,
just
hey, you guys,
he puts a dart in his mouth and starts playing two touch.
he's having a smoke and we're playing two touch. Like
That was his first day on the new team.
yes. Yeah, it was. I'm like, and guys are like, who is this guy? I'm like, just trust me. He'll be good.
He's really good at, yeah. It's like with my body when I got to Cardiff. I know Pigs wrote to Chris Frank from Western Michigan and said, "This Wally guy, your buddy, like this body, is this real? Like what the hell?" And Frank just wrote, "Yeah, that's Wally. Like don't worry about it. He's good. It'll be fine." Yeah, I get it. It happens. Like it's hard, right? Like, anyways,
You can't judge a book by its cover, right? You have
well,
to see
yeah,
everything about it.
and you are who you are. So
That's
moving
true.
on. Then you go from there to where you find a bit of a home in minor hockey is the Mississippi River Kings. You're there for 3 years and you score over 20 points a year.
That was one of the best, years. Like it was about 2.5 years of just the best. Like I played for Kevin Kaminsky, who played in the NHL, is a very successful coach, but his style of playing, like Killer's way of playing, was just like you either bought in, and it took maybe a handful of games for guys to buy in and really trust the system to play. But when you had guys that were committed to it and played it, it was stifling to play against. His track pressure and everything like that was insane to play. It was fun to play in. He was a pretty tough guy. He was talented, but he was tough too in the NHL. You could YouTube him, Kevin Killer Kamensky, and you'll see his time in Washington and stuff fighting guys. But it was just fun. Like we down in the South, when you play in the States, it's primarily a football area. You want to, people want to see action, anything like that. So if we'd be winning going into the third period, you come in and say, okay, we basically have the game here. Let's sell some tickets. And that was okay. Well, we'll go fight just to keep people coming back. And
Were
it
you
worked.
fighting?
I fought maybe 5 times a year. I wouldn't say I was.
I wouldn't say you're a fighter. Like I can beat you up.
Yeah.
Huh?
I think the year that Courtney and I were in Mississippi, we had wedding photos coming up. She's like, I never tell you how to play. I never interfere with your career or anything. All I ask is we have wedding photos on Monday. Do not fight this weekend. All right, cool. I will not. So we end up playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Friday night, Saturday night on the Friday night at home. No, yeah, Friday night at home, Saturday night on the road, Sunday afternoon back in Mississippi. I end up fighting all 3 games. Like just no no regard for anything, not my fault.
Not your fault. You
Well,
could, yeah, I understand. Back in the day, like when somebody says like we're fighting, like you can't not do it. You have to do it.
Okay, so explaining this, the Friday one.
Hey, by the way, long episode, Hazy Sunset.
So the Friday night game, I think, was against Tulsa. The guy hit me and then we ended up fighting. The Saturday night game was in Missouri, And there was a guy that I'd skated with a bit in Bloomington when I was living kind of there between seasons when Courtney was living there, Cole Rui. So we're sitting there, there's a line brawl going on. He comes up to me, he's like, hey man, like, and we're literally chatting while this fight's going on. Everyone's fighting. He's like, hey man, I'm kind of on the bubble here. I need to do something to kind of be noticed here. I explained to him, I said, listen, I got wedding photos on Monday, like just no punching in the face. If you start getting the better of me, just stop. So we end up fighting, and Courtney's watching with the girls, and it's just fuck's sakes, whatever. So call her after the game. She's like, what's going on? For like 2 in a row. I'm like, all right, tomorrow's Sunday afternoon, like 3 games in 2.5 days. Will not fight tomorrow. Guy hits me from behind on Sunday afternoon, end up fighting him too. So, but
Well, when your buddy asks you and says like, I need this, like, what are you supposed to do, right? Like you do that,
yeah,
right? Like
what you do?
I'd do that. 100% I would. Like if your buddy says I need this, let's do it.
Yeah.
And it's just like all my buddies now. I text them and they're like, I'm like, hey, I need you. You want to do a pod? They're like, yep. And I'm like, okay, done. Let's do it. Oh dear. Okay.
So yeah, from Mississippi, they end up third year. The reason I go to Texas is because they end up
Oh, you
dropping
think you're the
leagues.
host? You think you're the host again?
Hey, sorry.
You think you're the host again?
I'm
Jeez,
not,
Murphy.
I'm not trying to direct the chat. I'm just
Oh, you're directing.
okay.
Jeepers.
Then direct
Andrew,
away, Brent.
Andrew, what are you drinking there, anyways? This is 2 ales and hockey tails. What's that? You getting twisted tonight?
No, that's my calming feature. That's white rum and diet.
Oh, okay.
I drank beers playing golf today, and that was ending up in a bad way. So you said put your game face on, so I switched.
Okay, fair enough. So you went to the Texas Brahmas.
I did.
From the Mississippi River Kings, but just on a personal note, when you're going through all this up and down and moving around and basically living the life of a minor pro athlete.
Yeah.
And you had met Courtney, Court Ballz, who is also owner of Peachy Keen Studio, Wally 15. But was she with you for any of this, or what goes on in your romantic life, Andrew? I never really get to talk about this. So,
okay.
In minor pro, like in the minor pro you're dealing with here, how do you keep a relationship, Andrew?
So do your listeners want to hear this story?
Yeah. Oh God, this is love. They love it. If you can't get through it, shut it down.
Okay. So as I mentioned before,
Don't
Courtney
run on too long though. Let's get to the facts.
I won't. So Courtney and I meet when I'm in Bloomington, Illinois for the Bloomington Prairie Thunder for 40 games. We're getting to know one another. And then I get traded away as the suitcase I am. And I end up in Tulsa, then end up in Mississippi. 3 years go by. We're still like, chatting on the phone. I believe when we came back in the summers, you talked to her a few times on the phone, right?
But this was before Instagram or Twitter, any of this other horse shit. Like you actually had to call her.
Calling, yeah, and somehow figuring out T9 text and
you couldn't even see each other, right? Like there weren't video chats.
No, there was no Skyping or Zoom or FaceTime, anything like that. There was AOL Messenger, if you remember that.
That sounds hot. Jeez.
So anyways, after
I hope you weren't too aggressive on AOL chat.
No, I wasn't poking or anything on Facebook like late night, just a quick poke to check in the morning. Like, no, I wasn't doing that.
Okay.
However, So I play my first year in Mississippi. We're still chatting. And then my second year, no, my first year, right? So we're chatting and she's like, hey, she brings her friend Kelly with her. And they're like, we have a bachelorette party in Memphis. I was like, well, Memphis, that's just, 20 minutes down the road from me where I was in Mississippi. So we meet at a bar, and then that summer we kind of rekindle and tell each other how we feel about each other, and we're dating from that point. I don't end up going home that summer. I came home once and met with you guys, and then Dunner mentioned it in my wedding speech about waking up and getting back to Bloomington to see her. And so then I said, okay, so after 8 months, we get engaged and then we get married. And I'm like, okay, I'll play 2 more years and then that'll be it. So she ends up coming to Mississippi for, I think, 2 years, and then to Texas for my last year.
And then
And
she had never been like a hockey wife and had never lived that life, which isn't it's a very strange life for like Lisa. She got into it young, kind of lived it right till the end. But like
I
to get in,
I don't think she loved it. I think it was okay, we'll put this on pause for hockey season, and it just I don't think she liked it too much, but
it's a
it was
strange,
what it was.
it's a strange life. But like, I find it very interesting that because I remember the story of like you guys, you only played 40 games in that town, and like you meet her, and then you guys stay in contact for that long to end up living in Elmira and being married with 2 girls is it's pretty special. And that I have spilt water in Super Dave's bed as it makes it even more special. So moving
Very
on.
true.
I do know I don't think we have time for this tonight, folks. It's been too long, but I did see you played with Elke from Kincardine on the River Kings, right? Was it just the River Kings?
Yeah, I played with Jeff Elkenbrack and the Mississippi River Kings, and it was Uncle Elkie hooking up with chickens and
Yep. Either way, moving on. Next next team is the Texas Brahmas. I see that you like because I look at playoff games. That's kind of like what I'm into.
yeah.
That year you played 12, so that means you went pretty deep. I think because your other years weren't as much. But you scored 20 points, and you also played with my old line mate Adam Hogg, which I haven't hardly seen since junior B.
Yeah, he was our captain. He came from Colorado and moved to Texas with family, and that's I think where he is now. I haven't really talked to him much lately. He didn't come on that chat with us for the Sugar King
No, I know he
alumni
was. No,
thing.
I didn't see him on there. I haven't
Uh,
talked to him in a long time. I think last time I saw him was there. Well, it's either Rodney Bauman's wedding or I don't know which one's first, but when I was playing in Syracuse, he was coaching
by
like
a prep school or
a
something,
prep
right?
school or something, and they were playing against a team in Syracuse, and
Mhm.
we went out for the night because I was a healthy scratch and never got to go on the road trip. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I think for him, he went to St. Lawrence for 4 years and then was a teacher for a year and then went and said, I'm not doing this yet. And then
Wanted to play
started
more,
playing
and then
pro.
yeah. So then I guess you guys played for a bit, but it's a long time ago with the Shuriken. It's been a long time since I've seen that cat. I hope I could run into him again or chat with him again.
Yeah.
But moving on, so the other guy, or not a guy, like so were you guys good there? Like how'd that season go? Like what's it like living in like where in Texas are the Brahmas?
We were in North Richland Hills, so like it'd be probably maybe 30 minutes from Dallas. Basically like close to like the Dallas, like Fort Worth is close to there too. So you go to like Billy Bob's is a big country bar with like big names that come, and it's just like gigantic, and they have like the running of the bulls down in Fort Worth, and it's crazy. Like it's a different world down there. Like just
They have
wow.
their annual traditions and what they do, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's the Southern mentality is, something that is to be desired, I guess, a little bit on some points. But no, it was fun. I mean, I felt fortunate to be able to play for 6 years, and I just knew that was enough. I think, well, my last year in Texas, the last game in the playoffs against Wichita, I got my finger slashed in half and ended up taping them together and playing the overtime, and then we ended up losing, and that was it for me. So
That's fun, eh? When you're taping your finger up to play minor pro and then you lose the game. Like if you would have won the game and you end up winning the championship, you're like, it's all worth it. It was all worth it. It was all worth it. But when you don't, you're like, what am I doing? Like, what am I
yeah,
doing?
yeah,
Right?
it is. Yeah,
I know.
when you're in it, you're in it, right? It doesn't matter. You don't think about what you're going to go through years down the road or injury or whatever that you deal with now. You don't think about. At least I didn't.
Sometimes I no, I'm the exact same. And like we grew up watching the guys on the Elmira Sure Kings, and they were like, this is what it takes. This is what you do. And I saw we were a team like that. Like we would do anything for each other. You had ice bags on each other, but we learned from those guys what it took to win. And I think it, I don't know, it carried over in my career, right?
I think the same thing. I think how you mentioned before, like learning from Fish and Fearman and Eddie and Beaner, like all those guys, like, and I could name a million more, right? But like, you kind of like, what were we, 17 at
Not,
that time?
yeah, about
17,
that.
18,
Yeah.
something like that, right? Like, it was just like, I don't know. And yeah,
One, and then you go through 3, 4 rounds in your hometown, like a best of 7 against like legit, like we like a Thorold, Nathan Horton, John Scott, like it's all been mentioned, but like when like you play against all of them, like and then with your hometown, you beat them all. It's pretty wild stuff, right? Like when you look back on it now, that 20 years later, we're having a Zoom call with all these guys that were from all over the world, and we were just from Elmira. We
yeah.
were
I
just
mean,
practicing our sauce passes on your driveway.
yeah. I mean I mean, I know you have listeners from all over the world, but to small towns in Canada, I'm not taking away anything from around the world, but that's where you learn life lessons and everything, right? But for me anyways, and I don't know about you, but it sounds like
No, it's all like growing up with you and Weidman and Rodney and Hogger and like being around Mennonites and seeing how hard they can work and like not like yeah, the whole thing is just like Elmira is a hard working town and you see, it just that's how we grew up, right? Like you
I don't know if it's from that Mennonite mentality, but for me is what I've carried with me is like, are you hurt or are you injured? If you're hurt, you can play. If you're injured, you can't, right? Like
oh yeah,
if
injured
you're
is
hurt,
totally
we can
different.
find a way for you to play. We can tape, numb. till whatever so you can play. But if you're injured, you're injured.
No,
Right.
yeah. If something's dislocated, if something's out or like, yeah, no, I totally get it. It's 100% the first year when I was a rookie. Derek Clancy said to me, I was not feeling good one day, and he said, "Are you hurt or are you injured?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And then he told me, and I was like, "I'm just hurt. I'll be there."
Yeah.
Okay, moving on is then you decide you're done, but you move back. Well, you're in Texas or something, right? For a while. And then
Yeah.
you guys there's something happens there where you guys move back to Elmira and then you play for the Brantford Blast.
Yeah. So we spent about a year and a half. We moved to Addison, Texas. Courtney was working for a company just outside of Dallas. So I was done. And then I tried getting my citizenship. We were planning on living, I don't know, we were looking at houses around Texas in Arlington and stuff, but we just realized we were too far away from everything. At that time, Courtney's parents were
There was no
in,
ties to there.
yeah, there was nothing that kept us there. I think the one thing Courtney said was like, we're out for dinner with people, like we don't have Brent, we don't have a Scott, we don't have anyone, you don't have anyone here, right?
Who's Brent?
We don't have
Jeez.
Wally.
I'm
Sorry,
just kidding.
Brent.
I'm just kidding.
But we didn't have anything. And at the time, her parents were in Maryland. Her sister was in Illinois. Like we were a full travel day from everyone. My dad ended up getting sick and passing away. And then like, we were just like, what are we doing here? So ended up, you know, taking it, like just saying, all right, we're moving from basically the Dallas area to Elmira, right? And yeah, so we did that, and
And now
then
you're
I
now
didn't.
you're a cop and now everything's worked out, right?
Yeah, so then yeah, for the Brantford Blast, I don't know how long I didn't go without playing, but then ended up playing in the, I guess the Allen Cup era of that. And I had no idea what that was when I was playing, but ended up playing with some great guys. I played with Brandon Dietrich and Joel
Oh, don't
Perpick,
talk
and
dirty to me. Do you do you know that he's the one that brought me to Germany and is the reason my email is Brent Walton 10 is because he wore number 10 with the sugar things when I was just a young buck. And now I just want him on the podcast. I just want him to come on so we can talk about how he brought me to Germany and why I wore number 10.
and Dieter's a firefighter in Kitchener now, so we cross paths with me as police, and I'll
Well,
see him, and it's
if you
yeah,
see him until he comes on the pod, spray him with the hose, okay?
I will. I'll
What a
try.
yeah. If that guy doesn't come on soon, oh boy, it's gonna be lights out. Anyways, next question then is last question actually. I think we've pretty well covered everything other than um we got to say a thank you to all of our sponsors before the last question is first one is Peachy Keen Studios and Lakeside Organic Glow, sugaring, spray tanning, eyelash extensions, 15% off with Wally 15. You just got to say Wally 15 before it happens, folks, or else it doesn't count. As soon as the action starts happening, doesn't count. And the next one is stayinblue.ca. If you're going to Collingwood, Blue Mountain area, why wouldn't you get 20% off? It doesn't make any sense. Stayinblue.ca. Wake up, folks. You're going golfing. The world's back open. Let's rock and roll. Stayinblue.ca. Wally 20 on that one, folks. Wally 20, not 15. That's a 20. And last question. Do you play church league in Elmira?
I do. I play for the Floridale Flyers. So I've never went to, it's kind of a loose term for church league, but it used to be where you had to attend the church to play, but it's
That's what so when I was in grade 6 to say grade 8, um, there were like, yeah, like it was supposed to be about the churches, right? Is it not about the churches now?
it's not about the churches anymore. But there's, Rodney Bauman, who you've mentioned, plays. Ken Dunn, who was a Sugar King, plays. There's a lot of your brother-in-law, Scott Weaver,
Are
plays.
you guys
Like
all Floridale Flyers?
we're all Floridale Flyers. We are the oldest team in the league. However, when COVID shut us down, we were headed to the finals, but we're the grumpiest team in the league. We're probably the most penalized team in the league. The 10:30 games seem to hinder
Late.
us because we're old, but there's a lot of young Thundercats that play in the league with masks and shoulder pads, which is unheard of. And I think that competitive nature comes out about chirping and fighting and things like that, where, yeah, you got to get up to work the next day and you might get suspended for a week. But if you are working shift work and you can't make it, then you might take some liberties. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, you gotta keep it real. Like if they're gonna take liberties, you gotta let them know who's there, right?
Well, you kind of turn into a different, I don't know about you, but you turn into a different person when you go on the ice, I think, for
I'm
me
pretty much the
anyways.
same person all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm just focused on different things. I'd say, like when I'm on the ice, I'm like, yeah, no, just focused on different things. But I would always have your back, whether it was on or off the ice. And like, I'm the same wherever I was. I on the ice, off the ice, I was the same. I know there's guys where like you would see them as soon as they put on skates and get a stick, like their eye kind of just went like a little torqued, and you're like, oh my god, he's nuts. But like there was a lot of guys that were completely different. Van Eyden was completely different playing ping pong with him.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
competing.
competitive nature, I guess. I don't know.
I know.
You can't explain it.
Oh, it's just in us. It's just I see it in Colby too. Like my little guy, like he gets so mad about losing, like at anything. It's something. It's but that's kind of like what all of us and our friends did. And I can't thank the Sugar Kings enough for bringing in that group of guys that taught us how to win. And basically like they did mold us, like Agates, Fish, those guys were like, but it wasn't it, we were all competitive, and like everything we played was like competitive. Like there's a winner, there's a loser, there's no participant medals, you know, and we were chirping each other the whole way through.
And I think that would be another topic for another podcast with how things are run now, but I'll bite my tongue on that. I think
Oh,
we were raised in an era when you told you weren't good enough. You were told you were cut. You were told that you have to work harder. You were disciplined for not giving an effort. You
you need
weren't
to
given a medal if you didn't win. It was
you
about winning
you
and losing.
so like if you got cut from a team, they would tell you like, so you didn't make the team because of this and this, but if you work on this and this by next year, maybe you'll make the team. Now there's no review, there's no discussion. It's like there's a list up, like, yeah. Anyways, I don't know what it's like in minor hockey. I'm just getting into it, but um no, I miss the days like where, yeah, you know what I mean.
Hey, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But I'll be PC and say yay for everyone.
Well, you know what though? Like I miss hanging out with you. Like I do live in Kincardine now. I know that. Um, but yeah, I miss you.
Well, with things opening up, with this pandemic and people getting needles in arms, and things will open up soon. So
Yeah, no, it's all gonna go
it'll give
back to normal.
liberty to gather again.
And next thing you know, everybody's gonna be getting spray tans, teeth whitening, sugarings, lash extensions. Everybody's gonna say Wally 15, and then we're gonna hit the Bayfield Brewery for some pints with our spray tans, and everything's gonna be great. Talk about living. Hey, this is 2021. Like legit, this is real.
It's
So
real life.
Wally 15, spray tans, white teeth, sugaring, full body, and Elmira. Not so in Kincardine, folks. We will not do your undercarriage, men. We will not get that. So this has been. Do you have anything else for me?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I know we've been maybe 2 hours of this, but it's been great to revisit everything, and
Buddy,
I'm
we
honored
could
to
have
be on your podcast, man.
we could have done this 10 different times and it would sound 10 different ways. Like
Oh, for sure.
literally, we could talk about so many different things that was just a one-time thing. Like this isn't like I live in Kincardine now and I got a lot of people I need to talk to. So this is just a one-time thing. So next time you got to answer my call again and we got to do it again. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do a follow-up for sure. But thank you again for having me. This has been awesome, man.
All right. And that has been another episode of Two Ales and Hockey Tales with Drew Banger and Wally.